Welcome to the Sprint 53 summary and demo from the Kiali project. So yeah, today with me we will Xavi, other folks just to help us with the demos. So I'd like to start today with a big thank you. So past week have the Istio 2021. And with all people working on the Istio technology, on the Istio service mesh technology, users, partners. It was a really big event with more than 3,000. Some days we saw even a peak of 4,000 of visitors attendees in the demo. We have also several workshops. We had also a workshop from Kiali with more than 30 people just spending 2.5 hours just playing with hands-on, doing all the steps in a very long workshop. So thank you for the people that attend the workshop as well. So just a friendly reminder. So if you are in Istio Slack, so if you want to get some of the questions or the follow-ups, all the sessions are recorded. And if anyone has any doubt of where is this video, the other video, the slides, or any questions, so the IstioCon run in Slack is still there, so it has all the information. And remember, the Kiali team are always in the Kiali room, in Istio Slack, and also in the All and Good IRC. And you can also follow the news of the project in Twitter with the Kiali project stats, right? Okay, so this is Sprint 53. We had a lot of events, and we couldn't move a lot, but even that, so I will be able to to merge more than 28 pull requests. Also, we resolve around 18 issues, bug fixes, new features, so on. And again, so how we plan all what we are doing, all backlog is public. So what we are going to do for the next sprint, you can check that in the projects. You can participate on this roadmap, on this backlog with a discussion, with an issue. So don't be afraid. So collaborate with us. Tell us what are the issues that are more important for you. We can just do change or modify priorities on top of that. So this is always the message that I want to reinforce. Okay, so let's go to more the technical detail, what we deliver on this version that we are going to release today, the Sprint 53. So one of the fixes that we have is in the remember when you navigate Kiali to one application, to a workload, to services, you have several details. Between the details, you have metrics details, right? And in this metrics detail, you have several charting. So there was some fixes, some bugs related to the charting. The tooltip didn't appear correctly, some overlapping. So now that is fixes in this release, and all the tooltips should be more clean, and you should see that in this release. Also, it's an area that we are active working, and we are going also to improve these tooltips in the next version with more links and with more actions to work on that. Okay, so next one, another change feature that you will see that we separate better two concepts. We were using the terms either for two completely different states. Either was also used for a workload in the graph or the service in the graph, a node that has no traffic, but also either was used to represent that a workload that was scaled to 0 on purpose. So we wanted to separate that also, and now we are going to use the term not ready to be aligned better with the Kubernetes world when there is some workloads on application that is scaled to 0 on purpose, maintenance or whatever, to separate that versus an idle node that you will see in the graph with no traffic, right? So this is one change that you will see in the applications. Another feature that we introduced in this release. So remember, so one of the extensions the Kiali is that you may define your own custom dashboard. So by default, what we do is to collect the telemetry that Istio captures from the sidecars, and this is how we build the inbound metrics and the outbound metrics tabs. But also these metrics can be augmented, and you can expand these metrics with application metrics. It's something that you can define a dashboard, and you can just, if you want to put some runtimes dashboard, also to put it in the same place of the application, right? That's optional, and that depends of your configuration. But now by default, we are going to enable the envoy metrics, because in the Istio ecosystem, you are going always to deploy a sidecar in these workloads, and I think this information was quite useful to have it by default in the Kiali. So you will see that. Okay, another update, probably this is more minor update, more internal, about how Kiali communicates with tracing with the Jaeger. So in the early version of Jaeger, we were mostly using the HTTP API to keep that, and now the Jaeger has introduced a more stable GRPC API, so we moved to that. So it's just an implementation details, but also to document that the user will be able to use the new GRPC API to communicate with between the Kiali backend into the tracing backend, or in those scenarios that GRPC are not fully supported, because, for example, some OAuth proxy may have some issues in several situations, so the user now can choose in the configuration to choose one API or another to communicate with tracing, and also to correlate on information in the Kiali. Another minor feature that you will see is that by default, when you navigate into the Istio configuration, some fields that are highly populated, like the managed fields with the skin and also the status is present, now will be shown by collapse by default, just to let the user to focus more in the Istio business logic on the YAML, just to try to not populate very large YAML files by default to the user. They can open if are required, but by default they will be presented as a collapse option. Okay, so in this sprint we were working hard in performance issues, especially on big cluster. So this is another example of great collaboration, and we thank you to the community, to the user that take the time to go into the Slack room and report it that in a big cluster like this user, that he was testing namespace with more than 100 posts per applications. So they spot some performance penalty that we didn't see before, and this user were working with us to resolve this problem. So these kind of performance issues are now fixed, are part of the release of this version, and it will be available on the next update of Kiali. Okay, another feature that we deliver in this sprint is that in the trace tab, remember in the trace tab, what we do is to correlate tracing information with telemetry information. And we have several display options that now we refactor it in a better align, and to use the same display mechanisms that the graph uses. So we try to adopt the same pattern, the visuals into the trace display. So all the options that you can see, filter by percentile, by error, so to limit the query of tracing that you want to see in a single query. So now you will see that, but also in a better. Okay, so another fix that is included in this version is an improvement in the filters for health. So when you have a real scenario with a high number of namespace in your overview page, what you would like is to focus on, okay, what are the namespace? Which are the namespace with some degraded status or health status? So There was some use case that was not completely okay because there was some kind of mismatch in the health config, and now all the filters are fixed and are working as expected. Okay, so another improvement that you will see in Kiali, that if you navigate into the graph, right, you will see when you have tracing enabled. So what Kiali is going to do is to fetch telemetry, build the graph, that the status of your application or your cluster, fetch the trace, and it will let you to overlap and correlate what is a trace, right, with the telemetry. One gap that we had is that when you don't have a direct communication, I mean, so a service A is not talking directly with service B, but you are using, for example, a broker. So in some cases, the tracing, we have some problems to not show that a continuity between the flow, because a service entry was used, so the trace was out of the Istio and get back inside the Istio. So that scenario was not well covered into the Kiali, and now that is fixed. And if you have this situation where you have traffic in a single trace, is traffic moving out of your cluster and get back to the cluster, so you will see that into the graph, correct? So it's improved. The correlation between the tracing and telemetry is improving in the graph that we are going to show that scenario. Okay, now I guess that I'm going to, Xavi is going to give us some updates in the authorization and security policies. So Xavi, are you ready? We're going to stop sharing.
I'll share my screen. All right, so I guess you see Kiali here.
Yeah.
So there has been a couple of fixes and improvements related to security and the Istio config management. So I'd like to first a little bit do a quick recap, showing you a couple of things, and in the meantime showing the new things, right? So here what you have is that we have the good old book info namespace with the classic applications, and what we see is that we have only two services, which are details and ratings, that use MTLS, right? The other ones are not using MTLS because what I have at the end is that that here this is one link that we add in this Spring. What we have is that we have here that we disable MTLS for all the namespace, and also what we do is enable for the details and enable also for the ratings, right? So that's a basic scenario, and one of the things we've received this sprint is that what happens when you enable MTLS at mesh level, right? When you place a strict MTLS, meaning that all the communications in your mesh has to be MTLS. So in the background, I'm gonna add what is necessary to config the mesh like that with a strict MTLS. So I'm in my console applying a couple of rules that I will show you right now. So what happens is now that I've applied the rules, when I reload that, what automatically see is that we have this lock in the masthead saying that whatever you see in Kiali right now by default uses MTLS for sure, not automatic MTLS, which is if the peer authentication says you can use MTLS, you will use it. No, it's strictly MTLS by default, right? And one of the changes is that now details and ratings don't show any lock. But what happened? The thing it happens is that now the other shows a broken lock. saying, okay, everything is an MTLS except these edges, right? So it still makes sense. Okay, here on the right side, what you can see is the MTLS here is used, and also you can see the principles. So the SPIFI IDs unique that are used for MTLS communications. So all right, when you have MTLS enabled, you can use a specific fields for authorization policies, for authorization mechanism, right? Let me add one authorization policy that I'll use. I'll use the Kiali wizards, and I'm gonna deny on the I'm gonna apply a deny rule on the ratings. So what I'm gonna do is add a specific rule saying that for the app in ratings, I want to deny everything coming from the principles we've seen. So we want to deny all these SPIFI IDs. We don't want traffic with MTLS enabled that brings in the certificate this SPIFI ID. So this is really easy to do with Kiali. And here it's just adding the rule. And again, so I can create it now. And now I can filter by authorizations. So what I can see, everything works as expected. And if you see what I'm saying is details in booking for details service account can't directly send request to the ratings one. Okay, this is thanks. This authorization policy is only applied on the workloads with labels app ratings. All right. However, there's one specific requirement for these source principles, which is that you need MTLS to be enabled. So we've added a rule in this sprint to notify that if you don't have MTLS going to these targeting workloads, you should change it. You should enable MTLS, right? So let me show you what happens if I change for ratings and I'm disabling, sorry, in here. So in ratings, let me disable MTLS. So if I disable MTLS in here, coming back in here, destination rule and PR, and here is disabled too. So right now, when I'm going to the list, it says that there's some errors in here, and specifically in these specific fields, what it says is this field requires MTLL to be enabled, and that is right, because without the SPIFI ID, you cannot apply the authorization, right? You needed to identify which are the services sending it to you. MTLS is the one adding it on the certificates, so you need it, right? And if we go here, we should see that also for ratings, there's not MTLS now. Maybe it's only 12% of the traffic with MTLS, meaning that we are we're decreasing the traffic of MTLS, right? And there's no MTLS right now, so there's no principles and nothing else. So as a summary, we've improved the computation of authorization policies that when you have applied MTLS or you have it disabled for at workload level, a specific level, a specific workload level, then we also analyze and we can trigger this validation. Again, you will see different MTLS and security tools across Kiali, right? That we've been working all the time, and the important one also to to have in mind is what happened when you have it at mesh-wide level. And more or less that's from my side, Lucas.
Thank you a lot, Xavi, for a very great summary of the security new improvement that we are going to Kiali. So yeah, to finish all other tasks that are less visible, but good to mention on the sprint summary is that also this sprint we're working in infrastructure on enhancements, like more basically in the pipeline, the Jenkins pipeline, to put also the Helm chart release, also upgrades in the Kiali operator, the tier status field. Also, as you know, one important area, epic, that we are working on Kiali is support multi-cluster and federation scenario, right? Especially focus on upstream and other cluster and federations initiatives. So yeah, we're improving the work to discovery remote clusters. That's also that we are doing. And we continue to write blog articles, to all of these summaries, to write it in better details in our writing form. Okay, I guess that's all for this sprint. So I'm going to stop recording. Is that any
recording
of our folks
has stopped.